Uh,
Good morning, my brother. How you doing,
I'm
man?
good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Great, great, great.
Excellent.
So we gonna get this thing going. Welcome to Men Talk podcast. And how you doing today, man?
Oh, Brother Sam, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Man, I can't complain, bro. If I had your hand, I'd throw mine in
Don't do it. Don't do it. God, Sam, how long has it been since we saw each other? Since college?
it. Man, I guess so. 84 or
Oh,
5, whatever it was,
yeah,
man.
it's gotta be about that
Yeah,
long, man. It's gotta be
yeah,
about that
man.
long.
It's all good, man. Of course, we've been friends on Facebook, but I guess we should have hooked up beforehand, but timing is everything, so we're gonna do it right now. So how
Oh,
you
brother
been,
Sam.
man?
Oh
Tell us a
man.
little bit about what you've been up to, man.
Well, when I left Mississippi State, I went up to Seattle, became a mechanical engineer up there, uh, with Metro of King County, and later it became King County government. And I worked up there for about 18 years. And when I got up there, man, it was like a rebirth hit me. All of a sudden, I started studying African American history. I was so blessed and so fortunate to get under the tutelage of this incredible black professor from the University of Washington, Dr. Edward Jones. And
Okay,
this man just, he built an armor for me, of just knowledge, wealth, and love and dedication to our people. And as a result, I started teaching African American history, wrote a project on African American history that got national attention. And then I got involved with the NAACP, and I was involved in NAACP, 6 to 8 years. And
hmm
then the last 2 years, I became president. And when I ran for president, it was the first time that our branch had had an election in 30, 40 years.
Oh man, that's
And
great.
so, yeah, so when I became president, the first year as president, not only did our branch grow almost double in size or more, but then we were so active that we got recognized by the national NAACP. So there's 1,800 branches. And Julian Bond, the late, great Julian Bond, who then was the chairman of the board, came to Seattle and presented our branch with the Class 1A Thalheimer Award as the best branch in the country.
That's good, man.
And then so I left Seattle. Actually, I went to Philadelphia to receive the award, during the annual convention, but he actually came to Seattle to present the award. But when I was there, I was stopped by three young people who were members of the National Society of Black Engineers. And I had did a presentation, a keynote speech there for them in Dallas. And after that speech, they came to me and asked if I would apply to become the executive director for that group. So I applied. I became the executive director. So in March of 2005, I became the executive director for the National Society of Black Engineers. I left Seattle and came to the DC area, but our headquarters was over in Alexandria. I did that for about 9 years, had tremendous success. I grew the organization from a little over 12,000 to over 35,000 members. I ended up being the founder of the largest engineering camp in the history of this country for black kids, meaning that my engineering camp, I would have engineering camps that would have 700 African American children for 3 weeks. It was free to the community.
Oh man,
Parents didn't have to pay anything. And then I went, and I did this in 10 cities across the United States:
right.
Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Detroit, New Orleans, Houston, Denver, San Diego, and Oakland. But the one that of all of them, I think the one that I was most proudest of is I took the program back to my hometown in Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh man,
And in Jackson, when we did the program, it was the largest engineering program in the history of this country for black girls. I
hmm.
had 360 black girls for 3 weeks, free to the community. The turnout was tremendous. We got recognition from the governor. He came to speak. State representatives came. It was just an incredible program.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
So
So
is it
after,
still in effect or no?
well,
The organization.
the organization is most certainly still in effect. The program, as I did it, I ended up having a difference of opinions with the leadership.
Right.
And so I was raising, at the time that I left, I was raising $2 million a year to do this program
hmm
because I wanted the program to be free to our community,
Right.
not charge anything. And then the other thing about the program is I had I had African American college engineering students who I paid from all over the country to come to each of those cities
Wow.
and teach those kids.
That's amazing.
So I was using every penny that I raised to go into the program. And the organization wanted to take 35% of that money and put it in the bank. And I thought that was fucked up.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
so we had a difference of opinion there. Especially when the mission of the organization talks about increasing the number of black children into engineering. And now they
Right.
want to, now that they see how much money I was raising, they want to take part of that money and put it in the bank. That was just so screwed up. So
Yeah.
we had a difference of opinion, and I end up retiring in 2013. Retired in 2013, had a big investment in Facebook.
Yeah.
It paid off. I haven't worked in almost 8 years now.
That's good, man. So I remember you at State, of course. You and Charles and the whole gang. Y'all were all into engineering and techie. So what made you go into that field? I mean, how did you get that interest?
The only reason I went into engineering, man, is I couldn't see myself doing manual labor. I didn't go into engineering because I love math, I love science,
Oh, okay.
I love tinkering with things. I went into it strictly for the money. That's the only reason I went into it.
Okay.
And my mother pushed me into it, because she worked around engineers. So that's why I went into engineering.
Gotcha.
I didn't go into it for the love of science or math. I was good at science and math, but I went into it strictly because I wanted a certain lifestyle. I didn't want to go out and do manual labor. That's the only reason I went into it.
Gotcha. Well, I'm really impressed. I've always been impressed with you, man, and keep up the good work. Your social activism, of course. What made you go out to Seattle? Was it job related?
No, man. When I was in Mississippi, I was in high school, and this girl came down from Tacoma, and man, the first time I saw her, I fell in love with her.
Okay, gotcha.
Love. I'm talking literally love at first sight.
Right.
And she was down visiting her grandmother. I went over to, her grandmother allowed me to come see her, and when I went over to see her, I told her on the first day, I said, I'm gonna finish high school. I'm gonna go to college. I'm going to study engineering. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to come to Seattle. I'm going to marry you. And that's exactly what I did. So that's why I went to Seattle.
That's great, man. You like it up there, of course. You were up there, 16 years, what'd you say?
Yeah, 18 years.
18.
So I would tell you that, when I left Seattle, when I was involved in civil rights, like now you seeing people march on the freeway.
Right.
Sam, in 2002, there was a killing of a black man at the hands of what I call unlawful law enforcement. A thug. And when people hear me call cops thugs, sometimes they want to say, well, Carl, you being too harsh. Well, just like Black Lives Matter, words matter.
Right.
And if you look up the word thug is a violent person.
Right.
So when a cop has a man or a woman handcuffed and you're violent with them, you got them restrained.
Right.
And then it ends up you kill them. And you got qualified immunity, nothing can happen to you. When you see the behavior of these cops, it ain't like they in a shootout with black folks.
Right.
When black folks are getting killed because, a child is playing with a gun, a man is selling loose cigarettes, a black woman dies because of a traffic stop. When those types of activities happen at the hands of law enforcement, thugs.
Right.
And see what white folks, absolutely. And what white folks fail to realize, they think that this just started.
Right.
You ask any black person, we always
Right.
have known how the cops have been inside of our community. So I call them thugs. But anyway, in Seattle, there was a black man who was killed by a thug. And what I watched the community do is we'd always have, our protocol was the same. We get upset, we protest for a minute. A week or two later, it's all gone. So after the funeral of this brother, we're there we go, going into marching to downtown Seattle. We being escorted by the police,
Right.
Just a dog and pony show. So
Yeah.
I looked at the pastor whose church it was at, and I said, Pastor, this is a dog and pony show. We need to upset some things.
Right.
He said, well, Brother Mack, what you got in mind? I said, I'd like to take a right up there. He said, well, take the right. I took a right, and we marched on the freeway in Seattle in 2002. And when I tell you it was rush hour traffic, Brother Sam, rush hour traffic, man, we backed up traffic forever and ever. Now, ultimately, I led another protest and I got arrested for it.
Right.
But the cop, the thing that I want people to understand is I worked for King County government as an engineer.
Right.
The cop who shot the black man was a King County sheriff. So in effect, I was protesting my own employer.
Right.
And so they gave me a plea bargain, told me, look, Mr. Mack, you're high profile. Why don't you plead guilty, stay out of trouble for 6 months, and this will go away? And I told them, go screw yourself. I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen protester. You arrested me, but the thug who shot and killed him is never going to see a day in court. Fuck that. You want to go to court? Let's go to court. So I went to court. I had a young brother who was a lawyer, never tried a criminal case. He was scared out of his mind. I told him, I said, look, man, I have no fear. If this is my fate, do it. Right. I told my wife at the time, if I get convicted, hey, you sell the house, divorce, whatever you want to do, but this is going down like that. And to her credit, the sister stayed with me. We had a 1-year-old child, a healthy mortgage. I had a lot going. But more importantly, Sam, I had the strength and courage of our ancestors who sacrificed far more than what I was putting at stake. So, I got arrested. The young brother did an excellent job. Somebody busted in there with a videotape that helped me out tremendously. So I got acquitted of all charges. But when I left Seattle, our impact in civil rights was so profound that King County government, the county government and the city of Seattle named a day in my honor, February 12th. It was known as Carl B. Mack Day. So,
gotcha.
So Seattle was formidable for me. Is where I spent my formidable years as a young man coming into his manhood.
Great, man. So we're going to talk about, piggyback off of that into today's current state of affairs relating to social justice, police brutality, race, flags, statues, all of that. So give me your take, as you said, on social justice as it relates to police brutality. Of course, you said, like we said, it's been happening forever, ever since we've been here. My dad used to tell me about the stories. I came up in a little bit of a situation where it wasn't as outward, coming up, but it was there. I got stopped a few times, but it was just the cameras weren't available then. So give us your take on what's going on now.
Well, to your point, what's going on now is what's been going on since the advent of law enforcement in this country. Back in the 1835 is when the police first started up in the Massachusetts area. But since that time, we've been having issues. And the difference now, go back to, Sam, let's go back to the Rodney King situation. If you remember now, we've been having this situation going on, playing out with law enforcement since its advent.
Right.
But we never caught it on video.
There you go.
So when the Rodney King situation came, we said, okay, we're going to sit chill. We're going to let the judicial process play out.
Right.
And we was quiet. We was as peaceful as you can get. And what happened, Sam? Even though you sitting there watching the videotape with the man down there in handcuffs, getting beat, you go into court and they acquit all the officers.
Yeah.
At that point, we said, okay, we done complained to you. You haven't done anything. We showed you didn't do anything. We're going to burn this bitch down.
Right.
So we started burning shit down all over the country. And when that happened, the Department of Justice intervened. And then they got these cops on civil rights charges. But they certainly got acquitted in that first time. So now, fast forward to today. What's different about it? The police brutality, if anything, has amped up.
Right.
But what's also amped up is technology.
Right.
So to that point, we sitting there watching incident after incident after incident. And what's interesting to me is that in this latest incident, that was literally the catalyst that blew this powder keg up, meaning the murder, not the death of George Floyd, not the murder of George Floyd.
The lynching on TV.
On TV. Now, but what's interesting, Sam, the first time we heard the words, "I can't breathe," we heard them from Eric Garner.
Right.
So when I look at the murder of Eric Garner, and I look at the murder of George Floyd, I don't see a difference.
Right.
I really don't see a difference. Both men handcuffed, both men in a position that they never should have died, didn't do anything worthy of death. I didn't see any difference. But why was the response so different after the death of George Floyd. I'll tell you why. I mean, when you keep adding it up, our frustration is building. The advent of technology. We watching these things. Now you go back, Trayvon Martin. That was really kind of the thing that really just started saying, hey, enough of enough. You begin to see this national uprising. Then you come in and you get the Michael Brown situation. And then I will tell you this. I believe one of the greatest, the three greatest movements for Black progress in my lifetime, my opinion, has been the modern day civil rights movement, the election of Barack Obama, and the Black Lives Matter movement. Those three words that those sisters echoed, and those sisters being Patrice Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi. And by the way, I was also on the board of trustees of a college in New York, predominantly white institution. I convinced that institution to grant those three founders Black Lives Matters honorary doctorates. But when those sisters uttered those words, Black Lives Matter, that movement took on a life that has brought us to today. So now with all these killings taking place, that powder keg kept building. It kept building. It kept building. And when George Floyd, when we watched that young sister show all of that courage and videotape that situation and the brazenness, the callousness of the murderer, when that happened, that damn thing exploded. So that is part of the difference. And so now white folks are going, we can no longer ignore this. But this also happened again, Sam, back in the 60s. If you remember, white folks would come home every day, turn on their TVs, sit down and watch Leave It to Beaver, watch the evening news. But when the evening news started showing Bull Connor turning water hoses and dogs on men, women, and children, white America was shocked out of their mind. White America then got shocked again. So what I don't want us as Black folks to do, because history is filled with examples of this, the moment we get comfortable and think we finally getting there, racism ain't never sleeping. It ain't never sleeping. Look, when we fought the Civil War, and the Civil War was fought for one reason and one reason only, it was fought over slavery. So when we fought that war and slavery ended in 1865. You know what else happened in 1865, Sam?
What happened?
There was a little meeting in Pulaski, Tennessee by 6 ex-Confederate soldiers. Nathan B. Forrest was one of those soldiers. They formed themselves a little group. That little group was known as the Ku Klux Klan. See, once we got free, racism said, fine, we'll start our terrorist group. And then once we got the 13th Amendment passed in 1865, now you get the 14th Amendment passed in 1868, you get the 5th, which gave us citizenship. You get the 15th Amendment passed in 1870, which gave Black men the right to vote. Well, once they started seeing this progression of Blacks and equality, what did they do? They passed Jim Crow laws, separate but equal. They did everything. Racism never sleeps. So we cannot get lulled into a false sense of security of sleeping. So now people are saying, but they burning things down. There's violence. It's this. Wait a minute, man. America, shut up. Shut up, America. You ain't got no right to ever talk to nobody about violence. And I'm going to just give you one example. So here we are on December 7th, 1942. Everything's cool in the game. The Japanese came over here, and what did they do? They dropped bombs on Pearl Harbor. They attacked Pearl Harbor. Now, when they attacked Pearl Harbor, Sam, did America call up the Japanese and say, hey, let's sit down and be diplomatic and talk about it?
We're going to pray for it, huh?
No. That ain't what America did. America did what had never been done in the history of mankind. She unleashed the most lethal, deadly, nefarious force in the history of mankind. She didn't drop one atomic bomb. America dropped 2. So America, don't talk to me about Black folks getting killed day in and day out by individuals that you have sanctioned by our tax dollars, and you want me to sit there and say, we shall overcome. Let's pray for the brother. No. We're not turning the other cheek. We're going back to Old Testament, baby. Eye for an eye right now.
Hey, I wanted to piggyback off of something that you said about this police brutality. You were talking about letting our guard down. And while we're in this political situation, you mentioned Barack Obama. Do you think that our people got relaxed when Barack Obama got in office, and began to think that everything was good, because a lot of this started. Well, it didn't start. It did start with back in the day, but on video, you're talking about Trayvon. It
Mm-hmm.
started under Obama, and it kept going, and it built for 8 years. So do you think our people got too relaxed and thought, because we got a black president, everything's going to be okay?
Well, I think the whole country, well, one segment of the country got relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
but now see, so what I don't want to do is for us as black men to try to push any blame to what that brother said. And I don't think that's what you're doing, but I
No,
don't
no,
want
no. I just want
yeah,
to. I'm talking about the
right.
attitude of us.
Oh,
Did we get too relaxed with
what,
him in
what,
office?
well, I would think that we did take a moment to celebrate because, Sam, think about this, man. When our parents said, you could be anything you want to, they lied to us because the one thing that they knew we couldn't be
Mm-hmm.
was president of the United States. You could be an astronaut, you could be a scientist, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, teacher, you can be anything you want to, but you can never be the president of the United States. So when that man became president, without question, we as black folks
Oh
celebrated.
yeah,
Did we? I wouldn't say we relaxed, but damn, we celebrated.
yeah.
Was that full of hope? Was that full of promise? Yeah. But again, now go back to what I said to you. The moment that you see, what did history tell us? The moment that blacks started progressing, racism is going to come up
Amped
with it.
up.
It's going to get amped up,
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah.
And that's what it did. Just like, and even the election of Trump. The election of Trump is nothing more than a backlash against 8 years of a black
I
man being
agree.
president.
I agree totally.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Trump is an opportunist more than anything else. Now he a fool, don't get me
Oh,
wrong,
believe
but
all
he
that.
he he, he saw an opportunity to jump in after that 8 years. That
Yo,
angry
right,
white sentiment was
right.
there, and it had been building for eight
Oh,
years. So he,
believe that.
who had never really been conservative or on the right in many of his dealings,
Right.
He jumped in the political fray and just said, hey, nobody else gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be the most vile
Yes.
idiot that I can be, and I'm gonna attract these people. And that's what he did.
But believe this, he might not have been on the right politically, but
Right.
he was on the right
Oh,
personally.
definitely.
But you couldn't have said it no better. He felt that powder keg of anger
Mm-hmm.
from white folks against the election of Barack Obama, and he came in, and you couldn't have put it better, my brother. He said, "I'm gonna be the most vile individual I can be."
Right. And the more he does,
The more he
the
does.
more his base seems to get into that, because they
What?
see him as a hero. Most of his real base that's outspoken, they're poor people. You know what I mean? They're poor whites that really never had. And I'm not saying those are not all the people that support him, but I'm talking about outwardly.
Right.
They see him as a hero. That somebody that they can attach to, and it makes them feel good to have somebody in there.
Yeah, but let me give you just a little pushback on that, my
Mm-hmm.
brother. You best believe them cats on Wall Street was pulling for him too
Oh
and
yeah.
voted for him.
Oh
Believe
yeah,
that.
Because he's up in there. He's been in
Oh,
there a long time.
well,
At it.
because what he did listen, when they talk about the economy,
Mm-hmm.
they want to talk about how much Trump did for the economy. Look. Again, I don't want people to be unmindful of this. Remember that when President Barack Obama got elected, the subprime mortgage crisis hit America. The economy was in a free fall when that brother took office.
Right.
I can remember when the Dow got down below 7,000
Mm-hmm.
under Obama. Unemployment was absolutely skyrocketing. So Bush leaves office, and all of the subprime mortgage crisis, that building, that house of cards, it started under President Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And when Obama took office, he had an economy. If you compare the economy to horse racing, he had a nag.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the ribs on his thoroughbred. His horse wasn't worthy of being a circus pony, right?
Right.
And President Obama built this economy so that when Trump took over, Trump had Secretariat as the horse. Well, damn it, Sam, you and I can get on Secretariat and ride that horse to a winner. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But now what Trump did that you have to give him credit for, he did a couple of things. Number one, and I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent, but well, I will say it's good. This is what he did. When you take a look at the tax breaks that he gave to American companies. Now, the reason I'm saying it's good is because in this global economy, if you are a company, Sam, and America is charging you 35% taxes,
Yeah.
and you can stay in America, but move your company's
To
money
another place.
to another place, and they charge you 25%.
Right.
What you gonna do,
You're
Sam?
gonna do it. You're
You're
gonna do
gonna
it.
do it.
Yeah.
So all he did was made the American tax rate competitive with the world tax rate.
Right.
So that's one thing he did. That look, call it good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, American companies said to hell with that. If I can go to Europe or anywhere else and get
Right.
a lower tax rate, that's what I'm
Right.
gonna do.
Right.
The second thing he did was he went to war with China.
Right.
And damn it, you needed to.
Right.
Because what the Chinese was doing is, Sam, you made a widget. And in that widget, you got your intellectual property, your intellectual genius. Over here, we call them patents.
Mm-hmm.
So that patent gives you protection that somebody can't come in and copy your genius and now go and profit off of it. Well, in China, what China was saying is that if you want to come to China and do business, you got to give us the secret. You got to give us the secret recipe, KFC. You got to tell us what it is.
Right.
So China was absolutely robbing and stealing intellectual properties. And that's what they was doing. And then China would say this: Sam Young makes a bicycle and he takes it to China. The Chinese makes a bicycle and they bring it to America. When the Chinese bring their bicycle to America, they sell their bike for $100. Sam says, I'm gonna take my bike to China and I'm gonna sell it for $100. The Chinese said, nope, Sam, we're gonna put a 20% tariff on
Right.
you.
Right.
So now you got to sell your bike for 120, but they could sell their bike for 100.
Right.
And they thought that was fair. And
Yeah.
then they look at you like, well, you're not being fair with us. Man, the hell with that. So I applaud Trump for the fight that he took to China.
Yeah, I think in the past I have given him
Can't
credit.
believe I fucking said that.
I know it's a hard thing to do, man. I said a couple of times, that I thought he did some good thing. And when he started out, he was a little bit better, but he's gotten so drunk with power now because his followers are so ignorant and they're blindly following. And he was already had a little mental issue as it relates to dealing with power, and he's gotten so
A little?
drunk. A lot. He's gotten so drunk, man, that he's just doing everything. So I mean, but he did do some pretty good things. That China thing, I'm with you. I think that we had to challenge them on some things.
Yeah.
And if not, they just felt like they could do anything. So
Yeah. Well, let me be very clear on quote good with Trump. Those are the only two things that I think he did
Right.
that amounts to anything, And,
Right.
at least one of those things is debatable. So I'll leave that right there with that.
But I also wanted to piggyback on another thing you were talking about as it relates to protests. The older generation, they came up in the 60s and 70s. They tend, and I'm not saying all of them, but, they tend to want to still hold on to that method that we know didn't work to a large degree. I mean, it was successful in doing some things good. I'm not saying that it wasn't. And they probably did that because they thought that was the way to do. But as it relates to protests, what is your philosophy? And you've already stated it as it relates to peaceful versus tearing shit up.
Right. Well, let me be clear. Again, words matter.
Right.
What our ancestors did back then, man, and I'm saying that older generation.
Right.
Man, let every tongue profess, let every head bow. What them brothers and sisters did, man, look.
They were in a completely different environment. So
a completely different environment. And what they were subjected to versus what today we're subjected to.
Yeah.
No, bro.
I agree.
So nothing but praise. And then take a look at what they did. I mean, look, man, through those protests, Sam, without them, you and I wouldn't have went to Mississippi State.
Right.
Without them, we couldn't get housing where we want to. We couldn't get employment where we want to. So
we couldn't even walk down the street
couldn't do it, man.
Getting off of the sidewalk.
Yes,
less than 100 years ago. So
So I'm saying, when we talk about that older generation, Like I said, let every tongue profess, let every head bow to what they did, the greatness of what they did. But now that baton has to be, it is now moved to this generation.
Right.
But in moving to this generation, when you ask my philosophy on protesting, I go to the words of Frederick Douglass. So let me go way, way back. Frederick Douglass says this: any man who professes to favor freedom but detests agitation is a man who wants crops without plowing the field.
Right.
He wants the ocean without its awful roar. He wants
Right.
rain without thunder and lightning. This generation is fucking bringing thunder and lightning.
Right.
And believe me, when I was in Seattle, I was that thunder and lightning. I used to tell people all the time, look, man, racism and discrimination does not deserve diplomacy. So don't think that I'm going to sit down at the table, because I firmly believe this, philosophically speaking. Reason and stupid can't have a conversation.
Right.
So I'm not, as a black man, having known what my ancestors have gone to. Now you want me to sit at the table and beg you to treat me right? You done lost your ever-loving mind. We gonna do this, player. I don't care
Right.
how you want to party. We gonna party now.
And no matter what people say, the only thing that brought people to the table in this last incident of George Floyd was the fact that they were looking at these millions of people, and no matter how much power you think you got, when you see that kind of mass coming at you, brother, that ain't afraid to die, people that are out in a pandemic,
Yep.
you know what I mean? That got their attention, and nothing else would. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and I got to tell you, Sam, a lot of times we like to live off cliches because they sound good. But I'm gonna tell you something. Like Dr. King, Dr. King said this: if a man has not discovered something that he would die for, he ain't fit to live.
Right.
And I want to tell you, bro, when I was in that movement, and my mind was filled with this Black history, and that professor, Dr. Jones, when I tell you that man programmed me for battle. Look, and by this time I was married to my second wife. And I told her many times, now go back to what Charles Hamilton Houston said. Now, Charles Hamilton Houston was the law professor at Howard University. He was the mastermind behind that famed law team that featured Thurgood Marshall that argued Brown versus Board of Education at the U.S. Supreme Court. But Charles Hamilton Houston's famous quote is, "I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees." I'm not begging white America or society for shit that is mine.
I believe
them days is done. And this young generation, and I think what you're seeing with these young white kids and folks who are different from us, this is a younger generation who are looking at it and saying, "No, mama, no, dad, I ain't with that program.
Yeah.
I'm not with that." So they're stepping to the table. But make no mistake about it, the powder keg that is in us as Black folks, we didn't need, if they want to join the fight, join the fight. But historically speaking, white, you have always had folks that didn't look like us that was a part of our struggle. And case in point, Sam, who do you think the majority of the homes that was on the Underground Railroad, who do you think the majority of them homes belonged to? Right.
We had to have people to help us out, man.
And you always
I appreciate
had good folks.
that.
Yeah,
and I know what you
always had
mean,
good
man,
folks.
about the, getting to that point, because as you know, I was in the nation for about 10 years, man. And I've been in some situations that I would have never dreamed that I would go through, because I came up in a situation similar to yours, in that, I had to go away to find myself as far as Black history and what we've accomplished. But when I joined the nation, and, Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad, man, they put in me such fearlessness that I've been in some situations, man, that if I think back at what I was involved in, I'd be like, wow, man, it kind of blows my mind. But I understand you can get to that point
there, baby.
You don't care, man.
You don't. Hey, look, man. Like the Spartan warrior said, man. The most embarrassing thing you could say to a Spartan warrior is, "May you live forever."
Right.
Who wants to fucking live forever?
Right.
Who wants to, man? So look, I'm not. And I think what listeners need to understand of what we are talking about. We're not talking about being martyrs. It ain't like we got no death wish. Nor are we trying to play hero.
No.
But until you out there on that battlefield and you experience that something that something that comes upon you, within you, See, you experienced it. I know that based on what you said, because Sam, that is the exact same thing that used to come over me every time I hit them streets, man. It was something that came over me that said, look, if it's going down like this, it's just going down like this. But this shit gonna stop.
Right. And the powers that be know that
Oh,
if you are not at that point, you're not gonna go forward. But
no,
when they see that amount of people that at their point, that gets their attention, because they think that they're the only people that ain't afraid to die. You know what I
right.
mean?
But Sam, also believe this now. In every city, just like in Seattle, Seattle had its black gatekeepers.
Right, right.
You know, the ones that the white folks go to. But the one thing that Seattle saw with me, the black leadership had to tell them, we can't control this one.
Right.
But more importantly, see, Dr. Jones, my mentor, told me about the black gatekeepers.
Right.
And what they knew, I didn't have to say it to them, but they absolutely knew it. You fucking get in my way and I'll run over you just as easy
Yeah, man.
as I would anybody else.
I did it on a small level in Tupelo.
That's okay,
You
baby. You
know
did
what I
it.
mean? Yeah, you know what I mean?
You did it.
I tried to work with leaders,
Right,
when I was
right,
there. This was before I even joined the nation,
right.
and we got some things accomplished, but, it wasn't at the rate that I wanted to.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
I got with a group that I felt like, was a little bit more fearless, in challenging systems. And,
But and Sam, when you said they weren't moving at the rate, again, go back to what King said. King said, look, we want all of our rights. We want them here and we want them now.
right.
Nobody's into that whole waiting game. And every day, that speed has to be better. So, man, listen, and it don't matter, Sam, what stage you on, how big your stage
Right,
is.
right, right.
What is that you got in that, man. And I applaud you for that, my brother. Much love,
Yeah,
much
man.
respect.
Well, let me move into another area that we briefly talked about, and that was the Juneteenth. We just came out of June, and Juneteenth was one of the topics of discussion because we celebrated each year. And I asked the question, should it be a national holiday? And you told me that hell no, it shouldn't. So
Right.
enlighten me and
Right.
us on why you think that way.
Now, look, one of the things I want to be very clear about is, do I think we should celebrate Juneteenth? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do I applaud all the people that's moving to make it bigger, recognizable, something we adhere to? Absolutely. I applaud all that. But when I say hell no, and I'm saying it in the spirit of Harriet Tubman. See, most of us remember that Harriet Tubman, led, the Moses of our people. She led so many folks out of slavery. And somebody asked her one day, why, you free. So why are you going back and putting your life in danger?
Right.
She said, because if my mother and my father and my brother and my sisters and my people ain't free, I ain't free.
Right.
So in that context, when we're talking about making Juneteenth, now this is what I'm hearing from the people who are talking about making Juneteenth a national holiday. This is what I'm hearing from corporate leaders because they've been misinformed.
Yeah.
If you want to make Juneteenth a national holiday because you want to make Juneteenth a national holiday, okay, fine. I ain't got no problem with that. But if you're going to make Juneteenth a national holiday because Juneteenth signaled the end of slavery in America, that's where you're wrong. And that's why I'm saying, if that's why you're doing it, don't do it. Number two, in the spirit of Harriet Tubman, all of us weren't free. See, the miseducation of the Negroes, in the words of Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the miseducation of the Negroes is that General Gordon Granger on June 19, 1865, rode into Galveston, Texas, and told those blacks that he found enslaved that in accordance with the proclamation issued by President Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, you are hereby free. Okay, that happened. But when that happened, they were not the last folks in slavery. Now, keep in mind, June 19th, 1865, the Civil War is over because the Civil War ended on April 9th, 1865.
Right.
Right? So it's over. So, and because the Civil War was fought over slavery, people thought, okay, now that the North has won, the Civil War is over. Here in June, April, May, June, 2 months after the Civil War, over 2 months after the Civil War is ended, he still find blacks enslaved. They were the last slaves. No, no, no. Well, see, when you go back in history, you got to remember, when President Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, it said all slaves in states in rebellion against the Union, and there were 10 states that rebelled against the Union.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time he wrote that, there were 15 slave states in America.
Mm.
So the 5 states that were slave states that didn't rebel against the Union.
It was still going on.
Right. So you had Missouri, Maryland, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Delaware. Those were slave states, but they didn't rebel against the Union. So slavery was still in effect during that time.
Wow.
But now let's go to Delaware. Now, Delaware was the first state to sign the Constitution, and they was the last damn state. They was the last damn state to end slavery. How ironic. So what happened is on June 19th, 1865, when Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and said, "You're free," in Delaware, they were still slaves.
Right.
So see, slavery didn't end, and this is where you need the civics lesson.
Right.
From a civics lesson, in order for a proposal to become an amendment, you got to have at least 2 things happen. One is you got to have 2/3 of Congress to approve the proposal. And then once the proposal gets 2/3 of both the House and the Senate, now you got to get 3/4 of the states to ratify it.
Right.
At the time, there were 36 states in the Union. So you needed, it was 35 or 36 states in the Union. So at that time, you needed 27 states to ratify that proposal. And so the proposal that was put out was to abolish slavery in America, to make slavery illegal. So it got through the House and the Senate. And on December 6th, almost 6 months after Juneteenth, slavery still going on in Delaware. On December 6th, 1865, Georgia became the 27th state to ratify that proposal, which now became Georgia, right? Which became the 13th Amendment. And that's what ended slavery. So all I'm saying to people is, should we celebrate Juneteenth? Yes. But understand this, if you want to call Juneteenth Freedom Day, Sam, on April 12th, 1862, Lincoln signed the District of Columbia Emancipation Act. That act freed slaves. What day do you think those slaves view as Freedom Day? April 12th. That's right. When the Civil War was fought and Sherman marched to the sea, came through Atlanta, through your city, and burned everything down on his march to the sea, every time he won a victory and burned down plantations and everything, the black folks who were in slavery joined his army and started. That was their Freedom Day. Absolutely.
Right.
So that's the point that I'm making.
Yeah.
Is that when you understand history, and so if you want to have a national holiday that represents the end of slavery, to me, there is no more appropriate day than December 6th.
December 6th.
Because that's the day that the 13th Amendment got ratified.
Right.
And that made slavery in this country illegal.
Cool.
That's the day.
Yeah. Well, I
So
appreciate the lesson, man, because
no doubt,
I didn't know it, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know it. So
right.
We'll I want to go into a little bit of national politics right now as it relates to the presidential campaign.
Right.
Of course, we have Trump, who's been in office previously the last 3.5 years or so, and running against Biden. So, of course, we've seen what Trump is capable of. But how do you see this election playing out? And I want to also throw in, of course, the COVID-19 epidemic is among us. How will it affect that? You know, I have my own thoughts on how I think it's playing out, but what do you see?
You know, right now, Trump is going to lose. He's going to get a royal ass whooping in this election. I can't see it any other way. Now, as it applies to COVID, Trump handled COVID like a soup sandwich. I mean, just absolutely screwed it up. But now, so on one hand, with all the other racist nonsense that he's done, the embarrassment of what he has represented, sitting in arguably the most powerful position in the world, even white folks got to be looking like, God damn, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on. Even white folk got to look at it and go, man, this motherfucker's crazy. This motherfucker is just absolutely out of his mind. Now you throw in COVID. You throw that into the mix. It would seem like it should be a wrap. However.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
However, you know, if all of a sudden, in racism, like I told you, they got their ways, you know, just like back in the day, what did they use when black folks started voting? They used the grandfather clause, the literacy test, all these little tools, tricks and trades for voting irregularity. Now they got COVID, you know, just like now, you know, I think in where Mitch McConnell is, so many black folks there, and they ain't got but one polling station open. People got to stand in line for 4 days, you know, to try to vote, you know, that kind of stuff. So if you're not careful, they gonna use COVID to their advantage. So the Democrats and anybody who wants to get Trump out of office, you better be on your P's and Q's at the highest level, because if you relax and think, and that's the other thing, Sam, because he's turned his presidency into such a soup sandwich, and you think that there's no way he can get elected, and now you take your foot off the gas and decide, well, I don't have to worry about voting.
I think
that fool gonna sneak in.
Biden, even though Trump is, it looks like there's no way he can win. I think it's gonna be closer because of the fact that he's not as sharp as we would like, but his vice presidential candidate is going to be very key to, you know, because he needs somebody with some energy. He don't really have no energy. And even though we have that angry sentiment against Trump, sometimes that's not enough to bring people out in droves, because Trump's people, you know, like him or not, they're tied to his ass, man. Whenever you can get 20,000 people to sit up in a coliseum in a pandemic with no mask, and you up here making them sign a agreement that if they catch the shit, they can't sue, and they still come.
Right,
man. You got some base, man. You know what I mean? You got some base. So
not only do you have some base, but you still understanding the depth of racism in this country. But go ahead.
They're willing to die, man. They're willing to die to put that man. So we almost got to get to that point.
Yes.
You know, and I say we because I haven't really been as much into politics as I once was, because I kind of got disenfranchised. And the thing that made me disenfranchised is this whole police brutality thing. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, this stuff is still going on. And I'm not taking nothing away from Barack Obama and the Attorney General, nothing like that. But I was seeing this and I'm like, damn, man, it seems like it's something that they can do. And I think a lot of people got to that point. It's like, okay, we got a black president for 8 years and they still killing people in the streets and nothing is going on. So I'm not saying it was his fault. I'm just saying that's how a lot of people feel. So Biden is going to have to, and he has taken a little bit of a lead on the police brutality, but he needs to do more, man. He needs to talk more about specific things on what he's going to do, and whoever his vice president they need to really, 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 really push, that. And I think, I'm leaning toward him choosing Kamala. No, I mean,
for the vice president,
Kamala, Harris,
Kamala
because
Harris,
she's got that background in law enforcement, and she's a black woman and she's connected, and I liked her when she first started running. So I don't know, about the other candidates, but go ahead.
I'll say this: here was the fallacy of the Obama administration. That to me, if given the social unrest in this country, I'm gonna tell you the one thing that allows cops to do what they do.
Right.
Is something called qualified immunity.
Right.
So all of the listeners need to look it up. And what qualified immunity says, basically, is I can stomp all over your civil rights.
So is that a federal law, or what is it?
That is a federal law. It upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Wow.
Which means I can go in and do whatever I want to. And if I say these words, I view you as a threat, or I felt threatened. That's why when you look at every case, that's the playbook.
They always
they always go to that. And what qualified immunity means is that they cannot personally be held liable for anything they do. So now this is the craziness of that. So now you go to court. These people get off. Now the families turn around and they file a civil lawsuit against the city because the cities don't have qualified immunity.
Right.
And now the cities are paying. I mean, if you go to New York, if you just take a look at, just Google how much money has New York, Chicago, LA, just those three cities have paid out in police misconduct cases. Billions. Yeah. They close it in on $1 billion. So one of the things I would do, first and foremost, for police reform, number one, get rid of qualified immunity.
How does that happen? What do we do to get that change?
You could do it at a state level. That's why Colorado just got rid of qualified immunity.
Okay, gotcha.
But now if you move it to, now I think that there's a legislator in Congress who's got that on the docket. I know that when I looked at the Democratic bill on police reform, overturning qualified immunity was one of those things that it was at the top of the list. And I was very pleased because if you don't do that, the rest of it ain't gonna matter. It ain't gonna matter.
I agree.
If they keep that.
I agree.
But then what did the Supreme Court do? 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court says, we're not even going to hear cases about qualified immunity.
Wow.
So here the Supreme Court is watching this incredible social unrest, and they know what's at the crux of it. It ain't like they don't know. Yeah. They know that qualified immunity is what is allowing these cops to run rampant and be the thugs that they are. So number one, you got to get qualified immunity overturned. That's number one. Number two, and this is important as well, you gotta take the ability to charge these thugs out of the hands of local prosecutors.
I agree.
Because the local prosecutors, think about the relationship that they have with the police.
I agree.
They're looking at the police to bring them information on quote unquote criminals. So they got a close relationship with them. And when I was up in Seattle, there were two prosecutors that I dealt with, Norm Malin. And now Malin is dead, and his successor is a guy named Dan Saddleberg. Them thugs, and they thugs too, they got blood all over their hands. And I hope they listening to this. Norm Malin ain't listening because he dead. But I hope Saddleberg punk ass.
Well, we'll email it to him.
Yeah. He looking up from hell watching it. But I'm telling you now, Saddleberg, both he and Malin got black blood all over their hands. All over their hands. The kind of killings that took place in Seattle ain't no different than what's running across the country. And they never charged them. So you got to take the ability to charge cops out of the hands of local prosecutors. And you have to make an independent state agency that can look at police misconduct cases. Now, at a local level, you got to have citizens review boards. Well, a lot of cities got citizens review boards.
But they don't have no teeth.
And here's where the teeth comes in. You got to give them full subpoena power.
Right.
Now, if you get a citizens review board with full subpoena power, now you got teeth with that.
Right.
And now they can take a look at all the evidence, look at the situation. And when they find that it is an example of police misconduct, they can push that up to the state, and their state can now file charges against them. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. And then the other thing I would do, Sam, is this. See, when a civil suit is filed by the family, and the city is paying out millions and billions of dollars, you know where that money is coming from?
Us,
the taxpayers. So I tell you what, Why don't you make that suit come out of the police union pension fund?
Mm-hmm.
I bet you if that money was coming out the police pension
Yeah.
fund, the
They'll
so-called,
police it.
the police will start policing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
See, now all of a sudden, I'm going to whoop your monkey ass for going out there acting fool, messing with my
My
pension.
money.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Money talks, brother.
Believe that.
Yeah, man.
So
Well,
so that those are just some of the things I think we can do around
that's
police
great.
reform. Those
That's
are the big
great,
issues.
man. And so on the specifically, and we're gonna try to wrap it up here. We're coming up on an hour, man. I
Got it.
appreciate it.
Oh, it's
And
been a
I
quick
really,
hour.
you're my first guest on the podcast, and so I really appreciate you taking the time out, man.
I'm so proud of you, my brother. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. I read the description of Men Talk, and Sam, this is healthy for my soul, man, to be able to sit down with a brother, man, and just have
and
conversations.
I had a couple women like, why you naming Men Talk? I'm like, man, we need something, man. We getting everything took away from us, man. We need to be able to talk amongst men. Not that women, we don't want them to listen, and at times the real cool ones we're gonna have on one or two, but we want to keep it kind of,
without saying anything for or against women, I'm just saying to you that as a black man to a black man, this is therapy for my soul to have this
I like to
conversation
talk,
with
man. I like to talk, and so even though I know your company, Facebook, they get a lot of my free talking, I figured I might just make me another platform, man, and see. But I really do appreciate it. But we're gonna end with, you've been retired since 2013, and we're gonna have you on this show another time to talk about get more into the STEM programs, and how Black people need to move more into that area and what they need to do as far as getting their youth and everything involved. But I wanted to ask you, have you ever thought about any type of political aspirations for yourself?
No, hell no. Hell no. They'll dig up this podcast and be like, now listen, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
There's nothing I said
in
our conversation
that you wouldn't say, right?
That I can't defend.
And that's the type we gotta have.
Absolutely. Believe that. I'm gonna speak truth. I'm gonna speak truth to
wherever
my power.
you are.
So there's nothing I said. It's just that, man. Look.
Yeah.
In that world, in that world of compromising and all that. No, man. I ain't got.
I get you.
Look, justice and right don't need no compromise.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
just do the right thing. So I ain't
just
never
had
had
to
no.
ask,
Man.
You're tall and pretty and light.
No, fuck that. Fuck that, man. I ain't never had no aspirations for politics. Never, ever. As a matter of fact, man, I've told the people closest to me, if something should come over me and I decide to run for office, do me a favor. No, put a bullet right between my eyes, man. Fucking take me out. I ain't, it just ain't for me. I ain't knocking. It just ain't for me.
Yes, sir, man. Well, I definitely appreciate you, man, coming on Men Talk, and we're gonna definitely do it again soon. So
yep.
Have
no
a
doubt.
good day, bro.
As a matter of fact, Sam, we need to come back and discuss them Confederate statues.
Oh,
and that whole thing.
That's a whole show, man.
Yeah, we'll get in on that too, man.
And
but
also
thank you so much.
Financial literacy. We want to talk about that one show.
No doubt, we'll do it, man. But look, very proud of you. I love you, black man.
Love you too, man.
All right, Sam.
All right, later.
Peace.